Welcome, everyone. I'm really excited to be with you. My name is Brian Moses. So what I thought I would do is break out a framework for today's call. If you're taking notes, we're going to go through several steps, 8 or 9 steps. The first is we're going to determine the need. What are the indications that you need an inside salesperson? Then, number 2, we're going to identify that person so that we make the right hire. How do we attract that person and recruit them onto our team? That's third step. Fourth is interviewing, so we'll give you some tips for interviewing. And fifth is the actual hiring process, making the offer to the candidate. Sixth is onboarding them, and that's very, very important, getting them onboarded. You don't just throw them in a corner and give them a telephone and tell them to get to work. So we'll talk about the best practices for that as well. So without further ado, let's start with step 1, determining the need. What are the indicators that give you a sense that hiring an inside salesperson is appropriate for you? Well, typically you will be at level 3 of your business, the third stage. You'll already have admin in place and probably have a couple of buyer's agents. You're doing somewhere between 80 and 160 transactions, so you're needing help. You're generating leads on a consistent basis. That is not your problem. And reaching those people is probably one of your biggest problems. But it's critical that you have your administrators in place, and you probably have a team of licensed agents as well. It's also critical that you have some core capital, some reserves in place. When you're taking on another administrative position or sales position, and they're salary-based, and we'll talk about compensation and best practices for that, you want to make sure that you have core capital in place, $25,000 to $50,000 in the bank, so that you don't have to worry about the lag time. Let's say that you hire your inside salesperson today, and you're paying them salary plus bonuses, and we'll get into specifics about that, best practices. It's going to take some time for the fruits of their labors to produce a return on your investment. Let's say that the average market time is 60 or 90 days, and they generate some listing appointments right out of the gate for you. When you convert those listing appointments, you're looking at 3 or 4 months minimum of upfront investment into this person before you get a return on your investment. So it's important that you have some core capital in place. Some questions that you should be asking yourself is, what are your expectations? What are your expectations from this person? And when you're hiring an inside sales associate, like any position, you want to get a return on your investment. So what are your expectations for return on your investment? We have found that you can get many, many multiples of a return once things are humming along consistently, booking appointments and keeping the team busy, keeping them going. But it does take several months for you to start to experience the fruits of those labors. The second part is identifying. One bad hire, one poor decision could cost the company more than $60,000, according to Forbes magazine. So hiring the right person is a critical component to the success for this position. I'll give you some examples. I've made lots of mistakes and hired the wrong person because I've got these leads. There's always a good policy: hire slow, fire fast. Okay, so we want to make sure that we do the legwork up front to make sure that we're attracting the right person, because hiring the wrong person could be catastrophic. Personality profiles, D's and I's are typically rock stars when it comes to getting on the phones. They're not afraid of rejection. They're not afraid to get hung up on. They aren't overly sensitive to people saying no. They don't take it personally. C's can be good at tracking and reporting, so a little bit of C is good. So somebody who has a high C personality probably isn't the right person, but you want to have a little bit of C in there for tracking and reporting purposes. Ideally, in a perfect world, we'd be looking for somebody who has prior phone sales experience, okay? And we're going to talk about recruiting and attracting this person, but you can be on the lookout. You know, I've made some really, really great hires, you know, from people that I've met through my consumer interactions. You know, I hired somebody from the local mall who was a salesperson in a vitamin store, and the guy was just incredible. He was super awesome on the phones. I hired a waitress. So, you know, you can pretty much guess what they're making selling vitamins at the GNC at the mall, or what a waitress would be making. So it could be a great opportunity for them to increase their income. So you always want to be on the lookout for quality people, quality individuals. So be on the lookout all over the place. Think when I talk about prior phone experience, think about when telemarketers contact you. I don't typically hang up on them, even if I'm not interested. I'm always evaluating who I'm talking to and would they be a great addition or a great fit for my team. So that could be a good opportunity for you to attract, to set up some interviewing. Real estate experience, look inside your industry. So there may be people that are licensed agents right now in your marketplace that are really great on the telephone, but not really great people. You know, they're not great out there showing properties or strong at listing appointments, but there might be some opportunities for you right now, presently, within the real estate industry. So you want to be aware of that and have your eyes and ears open all the time. When we actually start to recruit, you need to have the right ad to attract the right person. I'll just read it to you here. I'm going to open it up. This is for the inside sales position. You know, so they tell you specifically what they're looking for, and the specific process for applying for the position. You want to make sure that people can follow instructions, right? So we have a specific process that we ask them to do. Imagine, and the ad says, what could you be if you sincerely loved what you do? We believe that you can have everything you want in life if you just help enough other people get what they want in life. You should love what you do or keep on moving. Keep moving forward. Your life should have meaning. We are looking for winners, and we will help you win even bigger. We're not looking for someone to just fill a seat. We're hiring an inside sales associate with a desire to provide services that are proven to change the lives and who wants to win and be a key player on our sales team. We are the leader in the real estate industry, and we truly aspire to be the turning point in the lives of our clients. The person qualified for this position is positive, enthusiastic, motivated, and solution-oriented, and understands the value of communication. They maintain self-confidence, and they're self-motivated individuals. And they have the ability to persuade and guide clients to their own conclusions. This person will also be responsible for prospecting, performing mailouts, preparing listing packets, maintaining the leads within the database. Our company will challenge you to acquire more knowledge and gain expertise in real estate. You will be held to the highest level of integrity and will be expected to work with a sense of urgency and high standards of excellence. You will be part of something that matters. And most of all, you will have fun because as steadfast as we are in changing our industry, we're equally committed to a culture that rivals Google, Facebook, and Zappos. Now, to apply and to be considered for this position, send a resume and salary requirements with the subject line, opening for inside sales associate with top real estate company. Resumes without the subject line and salary requirements will not be considered. If this opportunity doesn't resonate with you at your core, please don't waste either of our times. And that's the ad. So there's a couple of very, very important pieces to this. We talk about, in marketing, and maybe have heard me say marketing is like fishing. When you're running an ad, marketing is like fishing. So if you want to catch a particular type of fish, different fish eat different food. Different fish are attracted to different bait. So if you want to fish for mackerel, you want to use the bait that attracts mackerel. If you're fishing for an inside salesperson, how important do you think it is that that person is positive, enthusiastic, motivated, solution-oriented, and understands the value of communication? So you want to put that in the ad. That's important so that you attract that type of person. The other thing that is really great about Mike and Jay's ad is they talk about their standards. Our company will challenge you to acquire more knowledge. We will help demand that you gain experience and expertise in real estate. You'll be held to the highest level of standards and integrity. And then specifically, what do you want them to do? It's important that you tell them what you want them to do so that you can see how well they follow instructions. So that's the recruiting part of the ad. The interviewing process, let's talk a little bit about interviewing. So if done properly, and you always want to be recruiting, you always want to be looking for quality talent, so that you're building a list of competent individuals that could potentially be on your team as you go down the road. As these applicants send in their resumes, we recommend that you set up a group interview. So you collect all the resumes, you identify who you want to meet with, and then you contact those people and you set up an interview in a group setting. The reason we set up interviews in a group setting is not just because it's an efficient use of our time, which certainly it is, but it allows you to see how people interact with other people in an awkward environment, because they're not likely expecting a group interview. So the group setting is really, really beneficial because you get to see how people interact with each other prior to you discussing the opportunity. This is a very, very important point. When you're discussing the opportunity, don't embellish it. You're not trying to sell them on working for you. Their job is to sell you on why they're the right hire. And that's probably one of the biggest mistakes I made early on in my career, is selling them on the opportunity to work with me. You don't want to do that. You want to under-promise and over-deliver. You want them to sell you on the process. So discuss the opportunity, the pros and cons of the job. I guess the cons would be, you would be required to work some nights and some weekends. We have a higher degree of effectiveness to reach people on a Saturday morning than you do on a Wednesday afternoon. So that's expected of them. However, the returns are, working for a company that is progressive, that's educated, that's interested in self-improvement and personal development. So those are some of the benefits. And the pay can be great because it's salary plus upsides, commissions, or bonuses. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. So once you discuss the opportunity, you want to ask specific questions around your core values. Now, in order to do that, you need to know what your core values are. We have several core values. I'll give you some examples. One of our core values is that we are growing, and we need people that are coachable and looking to improve. So if you're really sensitive and you're not open to feedback and being coached, then probably not going to be a great company for you. And I'll give you some examples of how we find this out in an interview. Other core values we have: add value and make a difference. It's really important that the people that are on our team add value to each other and to the lives of our community and make a difference. It's important to us that there's a team player. that they don't have the, hey, that's not my job mentality. See a job, do a job. They have grit. They're open and real. That's very, very important. Communication's critical, so we want to know how they feel, and they need to be open to hearing how we feel. They're 100% accountable for their actions, 100 to 0. And they're respectful to their coworkers and to our clients. So those are our core values. Those are really, really important. I'll give you an example of some questions that we ask when we're doing an interview to elicit whether or not they're a good core fit. One example is, for 100-0, I want to know, do they have a victim mentality? One thing that drives me crazy is people that don't take responsibility for their lives. And if they're victims, they're not going to have a good place for us. So I might ask them, tell me about a time when you got screwed, and how did you deal with that? And I want to hear about, what I'm eliciting here is what are their values in terms of accountability? And how they answer that would be very, very telling. Tell me about a time when your feelings were hurt. So, I'm looking here about how open and real they are. I'm looking here for how sensitive they are. So tell me about a time when your feelings were hurt. Here's one to be to elicit whether or not they're coachable or they're seeking to improve. Tell me about the last educating type book you've read. Not a fiction, but a book that would help you in personal development or in business. Tell me about the last book that you read. That'll tell me a little bit about what their standards are. So you want to have these questions scripted out before the interview. You don't want to wing it on the interview. You want to have these all lined out. Let me think about what else at the interview. So at this first interview, we're really just looking to see if they're a core value fit. I'm not really looking for qualifications. I have the qualifications on their resume. They wouldn't have made it that far if I didn't believe they could do the job. So core value is very important, and I'd like you guys to write this down. There are 3 criteria that we look for when we're hiring somebody. One is, can they do the job? 2 is, will they do the job? There's a lot of capable people out there that are lazy, that won't do the job even though they're capable of doing it. So I'm looking for things like, can they do the job? Are they competent? 2, will they do the job? And 3, are they a good team fit? If they don't meet all 3 of those criteria, they're not going to get hired. They're not going to make it on our team. So that's important in the interview process. I'd answer any questions that they might have, but if they're interested, I'm going to instruct those that are interested to submit an email for a one-on-one interview. And I'm going to be very, very specific. I'm going to tell them what I want in the headline of the email, and I put the ball in their court. So in other words, I'm not selling them on the job. I want them to sell me on the fact that they want to go to the next step based on what we've talked about. So I told them about the position. I've asked them some questions that will tell me whether or not they're a good team fit and whether their core values match. And then based on the responses, I will grant the one-on-ones based upon their interest and mine. And just because they're interested doesn't mean I'm interested, okay? So I'm going to take notes about them in that group interview, about their interaction with other people, so that when I get an email from somebody, if I've made a decision or a judgment that they're probably not going to be a good fit from watching their interactions or the way that they answer, I invite everybody to apply and to request a one-on-one, but not everybody will be granted a one-on-one. So I think that's an important distinction. Now, in terms of hiring, once you've identified the person that you want, you can make an offer to to that particular candidate. And the best compensation structure for an inside salesperson is salary plus. Now, when I say salary plus, you can pay them a number of ways. Some people pay salary plus commissions for appointments. Some people pay salary plus commissions on closings. I particularly like salary plus appointments, so there's an incentive for an appointment, but you want to make sure that the appointments that they're setting, they're not just setting appointments with unqualified people, and we'll talk about the onboarding process in a moment. So if you've done everything that I'm asking you to do, the likelihood of them setting up an appointment with somebody just to increase their pay is going to go down significantly. In other words, they're going to follow the rules. We'd also give them a little bit of bonus on the closing at closing. So that can range, between $50 and $100 at closing, maybe $10 or $25 for an appointment, for a qualified appointment, so that there's an incentive for them to perform, which is always nice. And that'll really appeal to the high D personality. They tend to like performance rewards and will perform for commissions. They're competitive by nature. Let me see, make sure I don't have anything else that I want to add on that. In terms of the salary, every market is a little bit different. So I would look in your marketplace to see what the market wage is for salary. In my marketplace, a salary for an inside salesperson would start at about $30,000 a year plus bonus. So they'd have an opportunity to get to maybe $50,000. So you want to create a structure that attracts that type of person. If you are cheap, you'll get what you pay for. So, I tend to like to pay a little bit more than market wage so that I get a quality person. It's well worth it for me. Let me see what else I have here. Looking through my notes. All right, onboarding. This is really important. So I'll tell you about, I would encourage you to onboard yourself. So I wouldn't delegate this to an admin unless your admin is teaching them the CRM, whether you're using Infusionsoft or Top Producer, or whatever your contact management system is. But in terms of the skills sessions, they're going to get more out of that training with you, and you need to schedule that. I don't know if I mentioned this, so I will mention. I'm going to backtrack a little bit. I asked in the interview process, I always ask this particular position, how do you feel about scripts? If they go, I hate scripts, probably it's going to be pretty telling that we're not going to go too far, because scripts are an essential part of this process. I thought of it because when you're onboarding them, you want to review the scripts with them, you want to role play with them, you want to show them that. So that's really, really important. You also need to teach them the technology. So we use Google Apps. We'll set them up with an email. We'll set them up with an email signature so that they can follow up with clients via email. We'll access our scripts and our important documents through Google Drive, and it's free. It doesn't cost any money, so it's a great setup. We'll have access to their calendar. This is a really important point. So we can see everybody in our company's calendar at any time that we want. And we see when they're working. Now, we will actually schedule the call times for them. I would set the hours and schedule those call times, and that's when they would work. That's when they would be expected to be making calls. I also, some people will ask me, is it okay for an inside salesperson to work at home? I'm not a big fan of that because you can't inspect and you can't monitor and you can't overhear and you can't coach and train. So I'm not a big fan of that. I would hold out till I found somebody that could work within my office. We'll teach them the contact management system. So we'll add them as a user to our contact management system. We'll give them some training for best practices on the contact management system. We'll talk about what's expected. We expect that every person that they speak with either results in an appointment or has a follow-up call or has a note as to why. We don't delete anything, but we grade our leads like A, B, C, D, F. If we deem somebody not to follow up with, we might give them a grade as an F, and they stay in the database so that if they come through our marketing again, we've seen that we've had an interaction with them before. We don't just delete them. But our expectations for the leads that come in are that they're called and an appointment is set and they're qualified. Or if that doesn't happen because their timing or their motivation is a little bit off and they require a follow-up, as many leads do, every single lead must have a follow-up date in the contact so it doesn't fall through the cracks. We'll have them grade the leads. We'll have them put notes from their conversations, just bullet points, not long-winded paragraphs and stories about the client, just little notes so that they can maintain rapport and get there faster the next time that they speak with them. So, think about what is critical. We could literally do an entire call on best practices for contact management best practices, but I want to give you some ideas of what specifically I would have my inside sales agent doing. Depending on the size of your team, you may have an admin that's putting the leads into the contact management system, or you might have a software that's uploading them. If you don't, that might be part of the job description for the ISA. But, you need to determine that. The other thing that's important is I want a daily report of how many dials they've made, how many people they reached, how many appointments they've set, and how many sales were advanced or prospects were advanced, meaning they've identified 5 people today that have improved their grading from a C to a B or a B to an A. And, the time is getting closer for that person. So I expect the inside sales associate on my team to report the number of dials, the number of attempts they make. We use a dialer for our inside salespeople. It allows them to make many more dials than you could ever make manually, and ultimately reach more people. We'll also have a conversation with them about best practices for reaching people. So whether it's blocking your phone number, calling from a different number, some softwares allow you to, even if you're calling from a particular number, if you're calling from a dialer, you can program a number that you could put your cell phone number in there so that it looks like you're calling from your cell phone number even though you're calling from the office. So there's some great technologies out there today that have come a long way to make inside sales job a whole lot more productive. So the number of dials they make, the number of people they reached. So if I see that somebody's making 200 calls a day and they're only reaching 10%, they're only talking to 20 people, we're going to look at, is it the time of day that we're calling that's creating that poor metric? Or, so maybe changing the different days. So we find that early morning, evening, Saturday or Sunday, the percentages go up significantly. In addition to that, we have other techniques and practices that increase the number of people reached. I was recently in Memphis, Tennessee, doing a presentation for an office, and we had a little bit of time afterwards, so we went into the sales room and I called their leads. You know that I enjoy doing that to demonstrate my skill, but I called this person and they didn't answer the phone. And it dawned on me that what I do is unconsciously I hang up and I call again. And 25% of the time, they'll answer the phone the second time. So for every 4 people that you don't reach, you can get 1 person to answer the phone by hanging up and calling again. And I have my wife to thank for that, because when I don't answer the phone, she called again. And if I don't answer the phone, she calls again. So I'm like, geez, it must be important. I better answer this phone. So we tried it in our sales process, and we measured it with a company that we work with, And we found that 25% of the time, people will answer it the second time. So it's a nice little trick, so you can share that with your ISA. Where your leads come from. So depending on the size of your team and how well-oiled you are, you're going to want to show them and train them the back-office applications of how to manage those databases. You're going to have to create a user for them, so put them in so that they can access Leads Today or Commissions Inc. or whatever it is that you're using. And we'll have to have training sessions for them. I talked about the dialer and the benefits of using a dialer. Another thing when you're onboarding them, you want to get them into a company rhythm. You want to include them. So we do a daily huddle every morning at 8:01, and we do it at 8:01 because it's specific. People have a tendency to, when it's 8 o'clock, they show up a little bit early, show up a little bit late, it's a little casual, so we're very, very specific in the time. And that'll get them into a little bit of a rhythm. You should have an impact zone probably monthly, I would say monthly, where you have a 3-hour session one-on-one with your ISA to talk about what's working, what isn't working, and what can you do to be more effective and more efficient. What is measured can be improved, and what isn't measured can't be improved. I talked about an end-of-day report. So at the end of the day, their responsibility is to email me or complete a call log with the metrics that I've outlined earlier. Number of attempts, number of people reached, number of appointments booked, and number of clients advanced. That's my end-of-day report. And I'm always looking to how are their conversions, right? So you can, what is the conversion? How many people do we have to speak to? How many people do we have to call to speak to X number of people? And this is predictable revenue, right? So knowing your numbers allows you to actually create a predictable revenue for your real estate organization, which is quite exciting. So we can back into any sales goal, any performance number that we want to if we know, if we're monitoring how many calls we make, how many people we reached, and for every 100 people we reach, how many appointments are booked, right? That's important. So we want to maintain these end-of-day metrics, total them for the month, total them for the week, total them for the quarter, and look at them and monitor their progress. Another thing that you'll have to do when you onboard them is show them where they're going to work. So you'll have to set up a workstation, set their phones up, explain the workflow of your office so that they understand, so the left hand knows what the right hand is doing, right? You want to introduce them to the other members of your team, give them an outline of what everybody's responsibilities are and what the specialization is in your organization. Explain that workflow. It's very important. We talked about setting them up and continuous training on lead generation sites. Many of these lead generations, they actually do training. They provide training, so you can leverage off of that. It's not all on you. So that's kind of an overview on identifying, hiring, and onboarding an inside salesperson. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.